Join me today to find out if Tad Williams performed an excellent landing with the final book of the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn trilogy, or if this massive chunker of a book was a terrible plane crash. Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where a father and son talk about fantasy, science fiction, horror, and other nerdy things we enjoy. Just Jim, the father of the show, with you today, out in a hotel room as I'm on a work trip, and I'm not sure how good the signal is here, but I'm going to give it a try because I just finished a book and I want to talk about it to you today. If you enjoy this, be sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Thanks. So I'm talking to you today about To Green Angel Tower by Tad Williams, the final book of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. This came out in 1993 and is epic fantasy. I was intrigued after reading book one of this trilogy, The Dragonbone Chair. So many interesting elements, such a world that was created, such cool characters. But I fell in love with these characters and this amazing plot as I worked my way through book two, Stone of Farewell. So there was no way I wasn't going to finish this trilogy as soon as I could, getting through book three, To Green Angel Tower. Of course, this book is over 1,100 pages long. There was no get through this quick. It took me nearly a month to read it, but a month of glorious, epic fantasy reading. I wanted it to end so I could know how it ended, but I didn't want it to end. That's some fun reading. The setting of this story is again the land of Austin Ard, following directly after the events of the previous book. Want to know more specifics about all the lands involved and such? Read the trilogy. I've talked about all this in the previous ones. There's not a lot new introduced here. It's certainly going back to places we've visited before and discovering some new elements related to them, especially the Hayholt. Spoiler-Lite Summary. You're still safe if you've read the first two books but haven't read this last one. But don't listen to this if you haven't read the first parts of the trilogy. If you've read it all, stick around for the full spoil section at the end. But this book is where the forces of good put their heads together to determine how best to take the fight to King Elias now. Our people, Prince Joshua, Princess Miriamel, Simon, Benabek, Duke Isgrimnor, Sludig, Jariki, so many others. They finally all come together at the Stone of Farewell, and now they're going to start taking the battle to the enemy. And as they do this, they're going to come up with a plan. A plan that seems to give them a chance at success, at a win, though it's still a shaky plan because they're not sure how they're going to pull it off. See, prophecy and dreams have revealed they need to get all three of the magical swords together in one location. That will supposedly be the secret to defeating the Storm King and his tools. Priorites, the evil magical priest, King Elias, his pawn, and Utuku, Queen of the Norns. Once they have these swords all together is the key, and they only have one of them right now. They have Thorn, which they're putting back to the hands of Sir Camaris, and that's a whole cool element of the story. But the other two swords, they're back at the Hayholt. One of them is Sorrow, which King Elias has had since way back in the first book. But they have discovered that the final sword was the sword buried with Prester John, the old king. So it's right there in his grave. They've got to get all three together. Well, how are they going to do that? Well, it means they need to take the battle not just against the enemy, but all the way back to the Hayholt and have a confrontation with King Elias and his forces, which is really a move to get these three swords together and then hope, magic, something works, and they can pull off a win. Yeah, it's not a real solid plan, but they don't know what else to do. This at least gives them an idea that there's a destiny involved that should blow their way. Of course, it's not going to be that simple. Not that that really sounded simple, But things get complicated really quickly. I mean, some of the good guys decide they're not on board with that plan and they start off on their own plan. So people go missing. And then, of course, the bad guys, they're not just going to sit back and wait for the good guys to execute their plans. They actually take action. And things go badly for the forces of good. This story, full of battles, surprises, chaos, loss, betrayal, sacrifices. Oh my goodness. And then that incredible final conflict. You honestly never want this story to end. It is that good. But when it does end, so satisfying of a finish. One of the best that I've read, and I have read a lot of epic fantasy, people. Regarding the depth of the plot, I thought the plot was already pretty deep after I got through the first two books. But I had no idea just how many layers are written into this story by Tad Williams. He's got so much depth piled into this one book now. The conclusion of the trilogy, as he's revealing things that were laid out in world decades earlier, centuries earlier, and now are all coming to fruition here in this final conclusion. The revelations are delightful, shocking, and just perfect. A really well developed and executed story. As for characters, I've spoken before about how well Tad Williams has written his characters. And I've really come to value these characters that we learned about and had adventures with in the first two books. But now we get to see where they go in the big finish. And we've got some tragic losses here. Because you come to value the characters so much, when they go down, oh, it hits. But something I value is nobody goes out in a pointless manner. Our characters give an excellent accounting of themselves, often with great sacrifices that they make for the good of others, for the good of their loved ones, for the good of the cause, never knowing if what they've done is going to truly make a difference, but in the end giving something that others can well remember them for. Yeah, we see some awesome sacrifices here. Characters who really take center stage in this book for me include Simon, of course. It is his story primarily, but we've also got Cadrak, Tiamak, Sir Kamaris, Princess Megwin, Aditu, Gothwolf, and Rachel the Dragon. Oh, we've got some surprises in mind for some of these characters, and it's delightful. As for the writing style, Tad Williams really does suck you into the story and into the lives of his characters with the way he writes. I was absolutely engrossed in what was going on. I wanted to know what was going to happen next, always. And as major plot developments took their toll, there was such emotional impact. I know an author has nailed it. When I start tearing up during a story, I don't cry over books. I don't cry at movies. I don't do any of this stuff. But if the eyeballs start getting leaky, this author's good. These are just words on a page. How do you get so swept away that you're like living vicariously through these characters and experiencing the events with them? It's incredible. Good writing doesn't just entertain, it makes you feel. And this has a ton of feels. Themes for this particular one, again, there's a lot, but the ones that jump out for me mostly carry over from the previous books. The burden of destiny as characters confront what's been almost predestined for them in advance, and what they now need to go forth and do. Power corrupts. We continue to see that. The power of confronting darkness together. Again, we're stronger united than separate. And then an interesting one about memory and loss. The impact of memories, as well as what you have forgotten, and perhaps what you want to forget. Warnings for this book include war, violence, including all the battles, the results of battle, the many deaths that are out there. Be aware, it's there. There's psychological trauma again involved. A couple of key characters still really struggling with their past, with things that were done to them, with things they did that they're buried under the guilt of. The loss of loved ones and the grief that entails is definitely here and present. And again, there's supernatural horror involved, including this time undead elements. So if these are things that you're not comfortable with, you may be uncomfortable with the story. My rating? Well, both the previous books were 5 out of 5 stars. So relatively, this one feels like a 6. I know, I can't do 6 out of 5 stars, but I want to. Regardless, let me say this is genuinely one of the best conclusions to a fantasy trilogy or series that I've experienced in all my reading. All right, that's where I stop if you have not read this yet. So thanks for being here. Go out and finish this book, read this trilogy, and enjoy the ride. But if you have read it, stick around. It's full spoil commentary time.
The Spoiler Room.
Yeah, so wow. Okay, just a few big things that I'm like, in this book. The whole Sir Camaris storyline is tragic when you finally come to understand all that happened. It's heroic, but so tragic. And even more so when you even see how it ends then. I mean, he saves Prince Joshua and then just disappears again? Oh, this poor guy. I love discovering at the end that Prince Joshua survived thanks to that iron manacle on his left hand that he never had removed. It was an odd little thing throughout the books. They kept mentioning it was there. I'm thinking, why isn't he taking this off? Okay, now we truly know why it didn't come off. It was so could be a payoff later. And then his sneaking away, because I'm dead. I don't want to be the king. So he can go be with his wife and his children in peace. Be a scroll bearer. Oh, loved it. That was absolutely awesome. And I do hope he reconnects with Camaris, his frickin' dad. Just awesome. And I loved seeing Simon and Miriamel getting an ending, being happy together. They have shared tragedy. They have been through hardships. Now they get to build back together, ruling the nation and finding joy with each other in the midst of the struggle. That just felt perfect and genuine and kind of sweet. I wanted a redemption arc for Cadrak. I mentioned that on the last review, and we sort of got it. Not entirely, but what we did get was more real than I might have wished for. Cadrak is a truly traumatized, weak individual. His sacrifice, therefore, at the end, what he does do, primarily for Miriamel, was fitting. He didn't get this full, I'm the hero now, I'm totally good guy. That wouldn't have been authentic because he's too traumatized. And it doesn't fit who he was as a person, but what he pulls off at the end, loved it. But what really got me at the end was Rachel the dragon, finally coming out of her hiding hole, discovering things have turned right here at the Hayholt, and then that reunification she gets with Simon. That was written so wonderfully. And yeah, that's the part that got me the most. I'm choking up a little bit as I read that part. It was just written so beautifully. Well done, Tad Williams. All right, that's what I have about this story and concluding the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn trilogy. It's now definitely a favorite of mine in epic fantasy. What do you think about what I've had to say? Put your thoughts down in the comment box, or anything else you want to say about this trilogy, now's the time. And if you want to interact with Zach and I some more, look down in the show notes for other links and ways that you can connect with us. We love chatting with our fans. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.